Perfect. So let's record and let's get this thing going.
Let's get this
So
party started.
yeah, definitely, definitely. So I have Tiffany Zhou. Tiffany, where are you from now? I mean, where are you coming from now, right now?
Right now, I am in Texas. I currently live in Austin, but I travel a lot right now. So I spent my time between Austin and South Padre.
Okay, okay. Tell me why, because I know why, but tell us why you're spending time in South Padre Island.
Why I live out of my suitcase on the road. Well, it's a long story. Essentially, I live in Austin because that's where my home and my community is, but I actually invest. My entire business is designing, building, and operating short-term rentals. And while I do have STRs in the Austin and San Antonio area, most of my new development is focused down in South Padre. So I go down there to check on my sites, to oversee the builds, and essentially be there every day to watch my homes being built.
And how did you decide? Because I understand that of course you are investing with your dad as well, and when I first met you, you had a bunch of Airbnbs or short-term rentals in different places, as you said, and you were also looking to go to like Corpus Christi, but now you decided to go to South Padre Island. How did you decide
Mhm.
that? I mean, like what was the thought process behind that going to the island? Because I've seen the island; it's a small place, right? But so why did you
Mhm.
decide going there?
Yeah, it sounds very counterintuitive, right? Because typically people think, oh, you want to invest in a large city that has a huge population. And, South Padre Island, the population of it is like 2,400 people. Port
Right.
Isabel, around 4,000. These are small, small towns. So it does sound very, very counterintuitive. But there's several outside factors that I think really just make this an outlier space. So the first and biggest one is SpaceX has its launch site in Boca Chica, which is very close to South Padre Island. There's a lot of shifting things going on there, but essentially SpaceX has been really heavily investing in its Mars program. They are there, they're billions of dollars in, they're not going anywhere anytime soon. And that is a huge influx of very skilled laborers, of like literal rocket scientists coming to a very small town that has not been developed. So this sort of tension and lack of housing supply actually creates a really good opportunity there because there's really not much competition in the area. So that's the first reason. The second reason is the LNG, the liquefied natural gas projects there. It is the largest one in the US. I don't even know that I think it's like $7 or $8 billion, maybe even like $12 billion that's getting invested in through the LNG projects, and that is located directly in Port Isabel where I am investing. So that is a huge government-funded project as well. Thirdly, we are really close to Brownsville, which is actually one of the fastest growing cities in Texas. It's not Austin, it's not Houston, it's not Dallas, it's not any of these big ones. If you actually look percentage-wise, it's Brownsville. And of course, proportionally, it is a smaller city, so percentage point wise, it will grow faster. But there's a lot of just industry that's moving down there, a lot of manufacturing. We're also close to the border. We're near the port of Brownsville, where a lot of shipping comes in, a lot of trucking comes in, because post-COVID, people are relying less on shipping and more on overland routes because of the supply chain interruptions during COVID. So there's like 4 or 5 different big factors that are sort of creating this perfect storm that makes this a very investable place. And I think, honestly, when it comes to investing, my family and my philosophy is to just go for this blue ocean strategy. We're not investing anymore heavily in, Austin and San Antonio and these sort of overly saturated cities that everybody, if you know about it and it's mainstream, it's too late, right? It's
Right.
kind of like with music. If you want to be a hipster, you got to go find the next thing out there that has not yet been discovered. And I think that this is less speculation, and because of these several outlier factors, this is very much like, I mean, we're coming in early. So in the next 10 years, in the next 15 years, I think that these areas will very much be on the map.
And it's funny because you're of all the reasons you told me a lot of reasons, but of all the reasons that you told me, not one is because of tourism, right? I mean, because if you think about it, I mean, when you first told me about it, I know South Padre Island because I used to live down in the south of Texas, and I used to go to these areas, to the beach, but
Mhm.
as a tourist, of course, but not one of the reasons was tourism.
Well,
Instead,
it
focus.
definitely is. It
No,
is
I
a
know, I know, I know.
factor.
I'm
Yeah.
not criticizing that. I'm actually saying that there is a point to actually focusing on people that want to work there
Yeah.
for a short
Yeah.
period of time instead of
Yeah.
like the people that are going there for just a week or two out of the year, and that's it, right? Do you think that's a
Exactly.
better market?
Exactly. Well, yeah, because honestly, tourism is a huge part of the market there. It's great for spring breakers, for winter Texans, for people coming to summer and to honeymoon. I almost think of it as, I guess when I think of tourism, I wouldn't say that that's the number one biggest driver because then you're competing with other places like Miami that are big spring break places.
Yeah,
And
of course.
honestly, why would you come to a much smaller island other than a much more developed place with a lot more to do? I mean, really, that just comes down to price. And then it's sort of a race to the bottom to see who could have the cheapest price.
Yeah.
And so I think that while tourism is a really big driving factor, that's not like the only reason that you want to invest in a place because that can also be very cyclical. What if like a
Of
hurricane
course.
hits? What if there's natural
Yeah.
disaster or some other thing? So I think that you always, when you invest, you want to have, in the same way that you want to have multiple exit strategies, you also want to have multiple factors that are coming in and pushing in growth in the area. And tourism has always been very consistent, like spring break. March, June, July are always going to be hot months in the area. And similar with high tourism areas, the demand is cyclical, but I think that that's also really supported a lot by other things such as the increasing workforce in the area.
Mhm.
And it's also helping because space tourism is starting to become a thing now, which we never would have thought. But now with the increased number of launches, that's every couple weeks, every month, there's going to be another launch, and then the island just floods with people.
You told me about that, and I didn't know that there were so many people going to see the launches and all that. And of course, I want to see a launch, and I
Yeah.
had it like on my bucket list for a while, but I never thought of like maybe I should go to South Padre Island and actually see the launches from there. And it's funny
Yeah.
because you're concentrated, you're focusing your efforts on that. How many units do you have there right now that are being built?
How many? Let's see. I have six, nine, 11. There's going to be 15. So I'm currently building sorry, I can pause for a second. I don't know if you can hear my cat scratching in the background. Okay, okay, I'll start over. I have 15 units down on the island. Let's see, I have 9 that are going to be on South Padre Island, and then another 5. So I'm sorry, 14 altogether. Let me rephrase that. I have 10 on
It
the
doesn't matter.
island.
14, 15, that's a lot
Yeah,
more than zero, which is basically what a lot of people have there. Right?
exactly, exactly. And I'm diversified between the actual South Padre Island, which is the tourism hub, and then right across the bridge, there's another smaller town called Port Isabel, and that's more of like a fishing sort of port town. And that's where I actually built my first 2 homes. Which actually has turned out to be a great investment because initially I thought all the demand was tourism and that you needed to be building on the island to get demand. And what we've actually found is almost the opposite because there's so much tourism and there's so much demand. It's so saturated that now when we're building in Port Isabel, it's actually attracting different types of clientele that, for example, they don't want to be living in the heart of the party. So typically the guests take better care of the home. They want to be in a quieter, safer neighborhood. And they also want closer proximity to Brownsville and the launches. So that actually was a really, really great thing that I wish we could have said that we planned this from the beginning, but it was very much just a happy accident that we realized, oh, wait, there's a lot more demand for people that are working with SpaceX and contracting with SpaceX because it's just physically a lot closer. It's the nice medium point between living near the beach and living close to work.
Cool, cool, cool. That's very good. Very good to know. We had we had a couple of units, Airbnb units here in Houston, and they were in Pasadena, Texas, right? And in this place, if you think about Pasadena, if the town of Pasadena, there's a blue collar type of place, a lot of refineries. So you see people working there all the time. So nobody would have guessed that having an Airbnb there would be such a good thing. And it was for us. It was. I mean, of course, we had an expiration date on that, so we sold them all the Airbnbs that we had. We sold them, and now we're moving on to bigger things like commercial and other types of like bigger stuff, right?
Yeah.
But I like that you are also focusing on the same pattern of attending to people that work and not only people that come to visit
Yeah,
for the sake of visiting,
definitely. Yeah.
because if you think about it, that's only a very small portion of people, right? Unless you're in in Paris, like close to the tower, where everybody's gonna go any time of the year. Unless you have that, people are gonna come in cycles, and they're gonna come during the summer or during spring break, as you said, and that's it, right? Whereas
Mhm.
here, you're positioning yourself in a better light for your investors. I mean, do you have investors as well, outside investors, or is it just
No, right now, no outside investors. All
well?
self-funded.
You
Yeah.
should think about that too, because I think the possibilities are going to grow if you also open that door. It
Mhm.
happened to me too. We were, my wife and I, we were just focusing on having all the portfolio that we had on our backs. So we built it like from zero, from scratch.
Mhm.
But then some people started coming over and say like, hey, so when is your next project coming on? We're like, well, I don't know why. Well, because I have some money, if there's an option, I could invest with you guys. So it started growing naturally that way.
Mhm.
So I think at some point you're gonna have to open that possibility for investors as well, because I
Of
mean
course.
it's gonna make you grow exponentially. If you think about it,
Exactly.
if you have the
Exactly.
expertise, people are always looking to put their money onto things that they know work. And if you are the operator, you know that it works.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly. Yeah,
and
that's
they're seeing you too. They're seeing the work that you've been putting in. And
mhm.
so tell me more about this. So like, what would be the last or the most current project that it's coming online right now for you guys?
So just a couple weeks ago, right before Christmas, I finished a house that is it's actually two homes, a duplex, right in that little port city right outside South Padre Island. It's great. It's definitely more of a high-end luxury project. They're not huge. Each one is like a 3 bed, 2.5 bath. But I really, really love this one. It had a lot of opportunity for me to have some more creativity with the millwork and saying that, hey, I know I'm not building a huge house, but how can I really optimize this space and make it feel as large and just spacious as possible for guests that are coming to stay? So that just finished, and I'm actually putting on the roof. I think we're doing roofing right now for a second project down there on the island. It is 4 beach condos that is going to be a bit more geared towards the tourism there because it's really close to some great beach access as well.
Nice. I'm definitely looking to see pictures about that one too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. The photography is one thing. It's like I need to get on that with my marketing and my photography. And honestly, these have all just been sort of single projects, right? Like a self-contained project, one at a time, one at a time.
Sure.
And I was speaking with billionaire Fred Fishback,
Sure.
and one of the pieces of advice he really gave me that I've really stuck to is the fact that you need to nail it, then scale it. And
Mm.
so for me, if I can at a micro level with one house or one fourplex or one duplex, that becomes a self-contained thing where I can tell you, okay, these are the numbers, these are the returns. And I've not just done it once, I've done it 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. And in
Sure.
this area and in this market that I know, then I already have a proven track record that then I can say, hey, I've nailed it. I'm ready to scale it because look at XYZ. I already have 15, 20 properties here. I've been doing this. I can show you year over year what I've been making. It's proven now. And I think that that ultimately makes investors a lot more secure and a lot more trusting because they know that you have gone first and done that. And so that's really what I'm looking at next is what are the larger pieces of land, getting into commercial, getting into larger developments. That's my goal into 2025, is to say that I have now nailed it and now I'm ready to scale it.
And what would be in that case, what would be the goal for you? I mean, from what you said, just like going into commercial, but like in what type of commercial would you be doing that? Because I know one thing about like Airbnbs or short-term rentals is that to scale, it's difficult, right?
Yeah.
And like it's the load of operations, like
Mhm.
the stress that you feel sometimes, and because you're managing a lot of stuff, a lot of moving pieces, and it's basically like a hotel, but it's like a luxury hotel at some point, right? So
Yeah.
so managing that, it's not easy, right? So to
Yeah.
grow that operation, how do you plan to do that?
Yeah. So this actually wouldn't be scaling Airbnbs,
Okay.
which is quite a difficult endeavor. And people who do arbitrage, I'd say that's a bit riskier of a model for
Sure.
sure. What I'm looking at next is honestly building longer term rentals, building apartments. There's a huge lack of housing, especially for this highly skilled and highly educated workforce coming into the area, into a town where a lot of the housing has not been updated in many decades. So there's this tension of sort of the new money coming in and like the original people who have lived there and, oh, there's no housing for us, or, oh, are you pushing us out? So that sort of all those factors create a lot of opportunities to come in with a solution. And so that's what I'm looking at next is developing. I mean, I'm looking at developing from the ground up, but I'd also be open to renovating existing properties to turn them into much nicer, apartments, townhomes that would go for this highly educated workforce that's coming into the area.
Of course. And what's the turnaround to build a house, in one of these cities like Port Isabel or South Padre
Yeah,
Island? I
for
mean,
me,
after you buy the lot, I mean, you have to do your research, I guess, of course. But after you buy the lot, how much does it take you to get the house going on Airbnb, for example?
yeah. So from the time we break ground to the time it's online is about 8 months
Okay.
for the whole construction process.
How
That's
big are
for
the houses
me.
again? How big are the houses? Like, what's the square footage?
Well, so each property I've built has actually been multiple units. So for example, this last one, um, each duplex was, oh gosh, I think like 2,600 square feet. So the total was 5,200 square feet. And so that was 8 months from the time we broke ground to till both units were online operating was 8 months.
So
Um, so each
26,
individual
2,600.
lot, I'd say.
Yeah, so 2,600 each side, right?
Correct, correct. So
Well, that's
52
big. That's
total.
really big.
Yes, that's just for the house. Yes, the
Yeah,
lot
of course,
itself is
of
a bit
course.
larger. So then
Mm,
there's the landscaping, the backyard, the pool, all of
of
that.
course. Cool.
But
That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work
yeah,
for
8 months. I mean, I'm sure if I was doing 50 units, there'd be a little bit of a flex on that time there. But realistically, it's yeah, each self-contained lot takes about that much time, regardless of how many units are on the lot.
Of course. Of course. That's very interesting. That's really cool. So let me ask you something else. So when are we gonna have a party there so we can all go and see what you're doing? I want
Are you free tomorrow? I mean, there's a launch
I'm
tomorrow, so
I'm a long way from there though.
yeah, exactly, exactly. I was thinking about that. I would actually love to have um everybody in our network down just to, come host you guys, come have a party, stay if we have availability and just tour the area. I'd love to time that actually with the launch so everybody could go see the launch, could show you guys the area. I mean, that's it's very much my passion because I think a lot of people look on social media and they're like, what you doing down there? Like, what is there any human life that lives down in this part of town? And I'm like, well, I know it's quite far away. It's a little off the beaten path. But everything used to be a little off the beaten path and a little bit far away until we got more and more connected, right? So increasingly, we need to start going out to, like I said, like these sort of the greener pastures or the blue ocean, right? And
Of course.
for me, I think that there's actually very little speculation or risk in it, because if Elon Musk has already invested there, if all of these other big players have already invested, and these are like highly profitable companies, like they are their own economies that they come through. I was speaking with Mike Slade about this, and he was saying, yeah, it's a very interesting sort of boomtown like scenario where it almost feels like the gold rush, or what the Waltons did in Arkansas, where they created like the Walmart headquarters, and that just
Sure.
expanded out to sort of envelop all the towns and the cities
Sure.
around it. There is a really interesting thing of industry sort of being forced to happen, as opposed to just speculating, oh, I think people are moving there. Oh, I think the population is growing. Like, this is demand that we know is for a fact coming. So it's just about then meeting the needs of the people there. And for me, I think that that's really ignited a passion for me. I didn't even know that I was interested more in the development side and also the city planning, and saying like, hey, like for me, I come from New York City, and I moved directly from New York City to South Padre Island, which is like population of millions to population of 2,400. And I nearly went insane. And there's just, it's the things that like me, right? I'm designing and I'm thinking about, what does this area need for somebody who's a consumer that's like me, a millennial, somebody in their 20s and 30s that's in the workforce. And like, I want to have services. Like, I want to be able to go to, to a bar, to like a cocktail bar, or go to like a nice coffee shop, to go out and go to yoga or go to Pilates, or these types of things that smaller towns just don't really have access to.
Sure.
For me, even finding a gym in the area, right? And so as I've started to look and invest my time in this area, I've really just started to think about like, hey, a lot of the people moving here, they are not so different from me. And what do people like me? Like, what do we want? What are the sort of lifestyle things? And the exciting thing has been, okay, how do I now build it? So
Mm.
I started to think past the Airbnbs of what is the mixed use stuff that I can start building, the retail on the bottom, the apartments on the top, the, more boutique things, the mix. It's really like, that's where my attention has been focused, is sort of, how do I now create something for this community? Because I know that it's already growing and somebody needs to build it. Nobody else is building it. So why not me?
Yeah. No, I like that. I like that you're bringing something from the big city, the Big Apple,
Mhm.
and plus also your expertise as a designer, right? Because it's not
Yeah.
only you're bringing your expertise as somebody that wants to have, or somebody that wants to those people to have the same access that you have had, right? To good nice stuff, like
Yeah.
boutique stuff, right? And it's not many people in Texas that are doing that, because in Texas it's just a different mentality sometimes.
Yeah.
We're more about the practice, the practice stuff, like have the practicality of stuff, you know,
Yeah.
and like if it works, it works. So I don't have to mess
Mhm.
up with that, But you add something else to those stuff. You make it practical, but you also make them beautiful and nice, and
Yeah.
and ergonomical, and like you bring
Mhm.
all this stuff that not a lot of people are accustomed to. And if you combine that with a market that is booming, that is working, that it's people that want to have those things and don't expect them to have those things in a small town, then you have a good match. That's
Exactly.
what I see you guys doing.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's where I get to bring in the sort of the creative and the fun side of it, is that, if it was just like cookie cutter builder grade housing, you wouldn't, honestly, you don't need me to do that, right?
Mm.
Like, there is a large building company that can do this at scale, that can pump out hundreds of homes overnight faster than I can, better than I can, cheaper than I can. And I know that that is not something like I'm not going to take on your KB homes and put them out of business. Like me as my one person, I think I need to be really realistic with like, what do I provide that they can't? And I think that what my specialty is being able to walk the line between I have the investment side. I know the numbers. I can care about your investment and your returns and not just like, hey, we need to put in this $20,000, kitchen table because it just is so cute and you need it for Instagram. Like there needs to be a balance between the investor side and the designer side. And that's just like the constant war and battle within my head of me just yelling at myself between spend more money and spend less money. But I think that that is one of my competitive advantages is just saying like, hey, how do we take something and maybe you have an investor mind and budget and you care about the returns, but that doesn't mean you can't also make it luxurious and unique and something that somebody loves to be in. And this is really where I think you see design can elevate something, right? Like if you have two homes that cost the exact same amount of money, right? You spent the same amount on furniture, like everything is the same, but one starts performing better than the other, then you look at that variable and you say, what is that variable? And if that variable is design, that we both spent the exact same amount on furnishings, but for some reason, my property happens to look better, photograph better, or feel nicer, or feel more unique, then 10 times out of 10, your person is going to select that option, right? And then you see a direct return on the fact that like, oh, the difference was in the design or the care that went into it. And this is where you see that design actually does make money. We always think of design as costing us money, right? Because,
But
oh,
it's
I don't
different,
need
right?
to spend money on like that pillow or that lamp, like whatever, Walmart has one. But there are certain things, it doesn't have to be everything, right? You always want to have a mix of high and low, and knowing like what are pieces that you want to invest on that people will really say like, wow, like that is really, really great. And other things that are like, okay, it doesn't need to break the bank, you can just have regular silverware. You don't need to go to, Williams Sonoma and buy like very beautiful silverware type of a thing. And so it's just knowing how to allocate money into saying what's going to be a more high impact thing that creates visual impact. I'd say that that is what I like to do. And what I hope to be doing more and more as I continue to iterate up is saying like, okay, look, I started with X amount of money and this property made me Y amount of money. And then I did something a little bit more higher end and a little bit more higher end and a little bit more higher end to iterate upwards. That is where I feel like I'm going next, that I would love to be able to um, have more creativity and more fun in my design. But one thing that I do feel confident about is that I've always been very, very grounded in the investment side of things and understanding that like, how do you balance the two?
Right.
Right.
I
And I
think
don't
that's
think many
really
people think about that.
true. And I think that's really what you bring to the table, to be honest, because you have both the sensibility of knowing what looks nice and beautiful and works, but also matching that with the pocket, you know?
Yeah.
Because if you don't have that marriage of those two, then of course you're gonna have these people that are crazy about art and are like, oh yeah, that will look so good on your Airbnb, but then people trash it because people
Yeah.
don't care.
Yeah.
And then you end up losing thousands of dollars because of that little piece that was like the signature piece, but it shouldn't have been there in the first place because
Yeah.
I mean, your Airbnb is not a gallery.
Yeah.
So you have
Yeah.
to make that marriage of functionality and art and making it look nice and make it work as well, function.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. And there's always different price points. Like if you are paying $5,000 a night for an Airbnb and it's a gallery, then it works because
Yeah,
your guest
of
will know
course.
to respect that space.
Yeah,
But,
yeah,
if they're paying $60 a night in a spring break area, like it's a little bit different of
yeah,
a
exactly.
demand of what people need. So,
Yeah.
I don't think everything needs to be high end. I think some like realistically, everybody deserves to live in like a clean, beautiful space, and you can do that at any budget.
Sure.
And so I think that
Sure.
that is one thing that is really important, that like while I do love the super like high design and the luxury, I also want to be able to make it accessible for everyday people as well. And that's one thing that is, yeah, just very much a passion of mine, that the design just shouldn't be for the wealthy. It should
Of course.
be for everybody.
No, I love that. I like that very much. So let me finish up with another question for you. So what do you think makes you the best at what you do?
My brain never shuts off. No, I think that it's a good question. What makes me the best at what I do? I think it is the thought that I am not the best at what I do, because you always need to be striving to the next thing. Because the time that you think that you are good at it and you're awesome and everybody loves you, you're the best, then there's nothing more to achieve. And I'm the type of person that's very achievement oriented. So I always am looking to the thing that says like, oh, wait, what's next? What's new? What's the next big thing, the next hurdle after that? And I think that sort of goal setting or that progression is just a big way of how I've lived my life, is that I don't see it as stagnant. Like I do my job and it is what it is, but it's like, okay, I'm doing my job because I want to build this property, which will help me build the next property and the next property and the next property. And all of it is steps forward on a pathway as opposed to treading water. And I think that that sense of like progress and that hunger and that drive to achieve the next thing is what's kept me going along the way. The fact that I sort of compete against myself and need to one up myself to do the next better thing. That's a lot of what drives me.
Cool. That's really good. One last question. So is there a question that you think I should have asked, but I didn't?
Hmm. I guess maybe advice for somebody, if I have any advice for somebody who wants to do what I
Cool.
do.
Go for it.
Okay.
What's your advice?
My advice, I guess this sounds very cliche because we always hear these gurus talking about your self-limiting beliefs. But I would say that like the human mind and human capability is so endless. And it really is like what you make of it. The second you decide, okay, I'm quitting my job, but like I'll be damned, I'm not going to be living in the street. Like, let me figure something out. There is the second you put your grit to the test, you'll find that you can live up to that and then achieve more and more and more and more. I don't know if I saw this on like Instagram or a podcast or whatever. Somebody was saying that like when you think you've hit your end, you're only at 40% and you are actually capable of another 60% past that. So I'd say to start out with, like it just needs to be like you need to get yourself in the room where you're surrounded by people that you think you're achieving 100 and they're achieving 500% of it. And then you realize like, oh, wait, there's a huge gap. And that realization will then push you to be like, okay, what books do I need to read? What podcasts do I need to listen to? How do I need to like revamp my time, my finances, my friends? Like everything starts to fall into place when you have the North Star of saying, like, okay, this is what I want to do. And then how to get there. It'll eventually fall into place where you're like, I can't live my life the way I've been doing now. Something has got to change. Something's got to give. So I'd say that like don't be afraid to just set the goal very, very high and dive into an area where you're just surrounded by excellence, because that will just osmosis into you and make you cooler by comparison type of a thing.
Yeah, perfect. That was great. So yeah, I just wanted to thank you for being here, Tiffany, and we definitely have to do something in South Padre or
Yes.
with your stuff that you're doing there. And
Yeah, come down tomorrow.
again, I don't know about tomorrow, but, but yeah, definitely let's plan for that, and let's make it a like a group type of situation, you know, where we can all go there and see what you're doing, because I think a lot of people would benefit from what you're doing. It really opened my eyes when I saw the pictures of what you were doing. So I wanna be able to portray you to other people as well, if I can.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Yes, yes, would love to have you down. Come down. We will share all about it and you can take a look. You can see what I see in this place, the diamond in the rough.
Right, definitely. Let's do it then. All right,
Amazing. Well,
guys.
thank you.
Yeah, let's just finish up here, and then see you at the next episode.
Okay.